good morning, my friends, and happy Wednesday. We're in the middle of the week now, and we're getting kind of towards the end of the week, and we're heading out, and so that's kind of cool. Also, today is picture day for my kids, so we're going to have to break early, so we only have a 1 hour show today, but that's okay. We'll get there, and we'll get everything started, and it'll be great. So, we're going to go on ahead and work a little bit on some of my older drawings, and we're going to work a little bit on finding out what's left to do with Fred. So I'm going to go on ahead and bring up his book, because I think we are really approaching the end of this. We're down to only a handful of large pieces that need to be done, and they're very, very, very big. They're very, very large pieces. So, kind of want to get down to these last few pieces, because we're really just down to the end of the wire here. Look at 249 and see what we've got going on here. This looks like a piece that hasn't been used yet. So, take a look and see how complicated this piece is, right? Because it might be very complicated. We'll have to see. So we're loading it. It's a big file. There we go. Oh, that's right. It's a giraffe. A giraffino. So giraffino, giraffe something. So we will work on this guy today. And I'll just go on ahead, and before we even get here, we'll black out everything in the game. Right? We don't want to be broadcasting all of his text, so we'll go ahead and rig that up. Okay, so we've rigged up our giraffino, and we're actually going to rework this piece quite a bit. I'm going to actually bring in some of the various grids to help us out with this one. We're going to have to learn how to do the grids. Should be fun, but first, you know the rule. We're going to go over, for all of you at home, let's go over to the desk and let's do our morning warm-ups. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's do our morning warm-ups. This is the way this goes. All right. As before, we're going to go on ahead. We're going to build on what we've already built before, so we're going to go on ahead and draw a couple of lines like this. Remember not to do what I just did and go all the way to the end of the page. And actually, you know what? It doesn't really matter if they cross, right? I mean, it really doesn't. So I guess that's pretty much nominal if we wanted to do that. And we'll do a couple of these guys right here, like that, and this guy will get stuck right here on the table, as they often do. And then we'll get warming up. Warming up. Here we go. Loosen up the elbow, loosen up the shoulder. We're drawing from the shoulder, right? Two, 3. You don't have to go this fast if you don't want to. 4. You can go pretty slow. 5. 6. 7. 8. And actually, going slow is not a problem at all. If you want to slow down here, you get a much more accurate line, no matter which way you put it. So, going slow is a good thing if you really want to do that. And I recommend that highly. If you're not done with this page by the time I move back over there, finish the page. You're not drawing a giraffino, so you draw whatever you need to draw next. but it's important for us to warm up. So I just kind of like to warm up together as a team, right? So we're gonna start this next one. One, way off. 2, 3, 4. Again, I borrowed these exercises from drawbox.com. 5, 6, 7, 8. Because I actually really do fundamentally believe in what that guy on that particular website's saying. And that is that we, as artists, don't learn basic fundamental control over our own hands. And even I've been an artist for 30 years. And I can't draw a straight line without putting my elbow down and drawing from here, which ends up with this scritchy thing that we don't want, right? Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go with the 1. That one's pretty bad. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do a couple of interesting different ones. Here's a point A. Here's a point B. Right? Just draw a line between those two. Right? 1. And you're going to see waves and corrections. Point A and point B. Point A, point B. I should make this sheet so you can just print it out. Point A, point B. And now we'll do waves. Up, down, 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 up. This is great for anime hair if you're an anime manga artist, because anime hair is always sort of down like this and then like that, and I always do stuff like that. And when you're hand drawing, so nasty, right? We want to definitely not have these crisscrosses where they cross over like this. You want to practice that. So we're down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, up, down, 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 up. You get the idea. All right, I feel like I'm pretty warmed up. How about you guys? Feeling pretty warmed up? Let's move back to our primary job. All right. Alrighty. Now we're going to be working a little bit today on Fred's pieces, because that's what we're on at this point in time. So I'm working on giraffinos. Giraffinos? I don't know. We're going to take a look. So let's take a look at what we've got over here. Okay? we've got a Girafino. I've decided that's the name. Girafino. Girafino. Got a Girafino here. And we're going to be working on him. First things I want to do, hey Brent, good to see you. Let's get the microphone back over here. We're working on the Girafino for Fred's piece, and so what we've got here is it's a giraffe with rhino horns. That's what it looks like. So I don't understand exactly why we're redrawing this piece, which looks beautiful to me, but I guess it's, I don't know, he didn't like it for reasons that I don't understand, but that's okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about, this guy here, and kind of setting up this rig. No, we want to work. Do that. There we go. No, that's not what we want to do either. We want to do that. There we go. And we'll put a new layer on. And I'm going to look at some of this like just as a series of boxes, because I'm having a hard time visualizing this really weird angle we've got going on here. We have a giraffe, or a Girafino, which is trying to eat oranges off the top of this wall, or eat fruit of some sort off the top of this wall. So the angle is really strange, and so I'm going to try to use some of the assistants that we've got here, and I'm not sure how to use those yet, so we're going to figure that out today. Right? We're going to talk about using the rulers for this and create a perspective ruler. And I think we're at 3-point here, right? And that's what I think we've got going on here. That ruler is not very helpful. I have no earthly idea where it's going. It's kind of funny, actually. Like, can I move this? I guess I can. Can I move the perspective, or is it just going to say no? It's going to say no. Okay. Oh no. But then you'll lose Spock's support. Okay. Dad jokes are a point of obviousness here in this show. And so Brent is apparently dealing with his new printer, which I think is awesome, and I'm so excited to see what he comes up with on his new printer. But he's apparently fighting with supports, so he's feeling unsupported right now. I feel like this is a funny joke, and I'm just gonna keep working this one for a while anyway. But we're good. We're good. Okay, first things first, let's talk about this angle right here. You tolerate me, and I don't know why, but that's okay. Here we go. So, when I put in the body and the torso of this animal right here, I'm looking at how this structure works. And what I'm seeing is this leg here needs to be down here quite a bit, right? Now, apparently the creature has rhinoceros kneecaps, which is cool. And I'll just give him this point here, and then we'll give a little bit of a leg down here to work with. As I keep reminding my other students, who take art classes from me, an animal's back leg is not actually reversed. That's a misnomer that makes it difficult for us to understand how legs work. They're not reversed at all. They're actually exactly the same as our legs. It's just what you have is, in that sort of upper thigh, you have what we would call our thigh bone, and then you have a very long shin bone, right? And then down here is a very, very long foot with toes. But it's still the same joints that we would have. It's just that an animal like a cat or a dog, they just have a very long shin bone and a very long foot. And this is what we would call the ankle. What you would call a reversed knee isn't a reversed knee at all. It's an ankle. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. And the back legs are constantly on tippy toes. They're just walking on their tippy toes on the back legs. It gives a much more nimble movement in the animal, makes them much more nimble, and they can do more. Which is why you don't see it in the larger animals like rhinoceroses and giraffes and things like that. You don't see that as much. Well, giraffes might have it, but rhinoceros don't. They don't have those turned, the extended bones back here. And the reason mostly is because they don't need it. That's a speed thing. It's much faster. You've seen runners when they're out there on the starting block. They don't put their feet flat on the ground. They raise their feet up and they're on their toes when they're ready to start. It's a faster move. So the creatures that go fast, cats, dogs, things that chase, they have these extended long legs. But our giraffe does not, or giraffino. Right? He's just getting the oranges. No matter which way you look at it, we want to follow the logic here. So his head is tilted sideways, but that's only because he's trying to eat these oranges, and animals like horses and camelids, which is the class of animal, they'll turn their heads sideways to grab things. That's what he's doing. He's turning his head sideways. So we've got kind of that going on here, and we want to represent that with this long neck. Right, because it's a very long, and of course a giraffe is also of the camel family and less of the horse family, and so he belongs more to camels than horses. So we're just putting in this horn right here between the nose. Camelids also have beautiful eyes. They always have. Long eyelashes. Mostly that comes from life on the savannah. So this is sort of, here we'll put his lips on this slightly here. It's hysterical personally, how much effort he's going into grabbing this orange. No, I'm entertained. Just the thought of this, oh, you know what? Bob, let's start putting all of our oranges up high, because you can't keep the Gerafinos away from them. Gerafino. Cut to this scene where the Gerafino is most definitely chowing down. Okay, I'm going to actually put this leg out like this, because this feels like he's about to topple over. There we go. And again, follow the logic of the body here. By the way, No Man's Sky has released its newest update today. That was cool. It's called Origins, and it's a fascinating new update. Okay, so looking at the anatomy of this creature, and for those of you who are not familiar with No Man's Sky, every update, they update their procedural engine, and so it's risky. Very, very risky for all of us who play the game, because every update could wipe out their entire house. This newest update has added volcanic activity, and sandworms, and they redid their animal procedure. So now there are a lot more varied and interesting animals everywhere, which I find fascinating. But since it's procedural, which means that it's randomly generated, but when they say randomly generated, as my good friend Shane has been known to tell me from more than once, computers can't actually do completely random things. They can't. There's no way. It has to have, yes, you. It has to have an actual, like, something. So what usually happens is the program will say, check the time clock of the computer, and then, no, not you, and then figure out when and where and how to add to that or subtract to that. That way you always get sort of a different number depending on what time it is, or what cycle it's on, or whatever. But what has happened is, that means that you can do a random program. What was that? You can do a random program. Is that my cat trying to escape? Hey cat, no escaping. That's you, George. I see he's attacking my window, and you might be able to see him right there. I don't know what's outside, but boy, he's all about it, isn't he? Yeah, that's you. We're talking about you. What's the definition of insanity, George? Gosh. Kittens. Anyway, right? Well, he's not running. He's just attacking a thing on the glass. Because he's a kitten. Anyway, you can see him right over there. He's still attacking it. Yeah, I think he found a bug too, which is good. You're doing your job, cat. Good job. I am horribly entomophobic, and so the more bugs he kills, the better it is. And that's his job. He was hired for that. I just love the repetitive jumping. That's cracking me up. Anyway, so No Man's Sky is procedurally generated. And that means that it has a code that says when this number is this, you do this. But it then just randomly generates numbers, but since they're computers, they're always the same randomly generated number. So so when the system does this, the programming does that, it's fascinating because you can always have the same obscure planet way off into the distance. We sit there and go, well, how could that possibly happen? But as long as the seed number is the same, then the complex mathematics always go to the same direction, wherever that direction is. And so the entire game is based upon this. So it's extremely lightweight. It doesn't actually have a lot that it uses, like save space and stuff like that, because it doesn't need it. But every time they do an update, those seed numbers might change. There have been a couple of times where I have found the perfect planet. It was ideal. It was beautiful. The weather was great. There were no creatures trying to kill me. It was a lovely sky. The grass was blue, and all this stuff that I really liked. And then they would update it, and all of a sudden my character shows up in the middle of a lava flow, or something horrible because the planet has gotten turned into a toxic nightmare. And so it was every time we go through these. Right, but in the instance, Brent's saying computers are not random. They operate on the programming of the person and the math that it runs in the CPU. And that's what I'm trying to kind of get to here is it isn't random. Computers cannot do random. They can't. So when you use the RND key, the command which says to randomly generate a number, it can't. It has to find something that is plausibly in a semi-random universe and then run a mathematics off of that. And so generally what happens is you get, like, it'll hit the clock and ask for what time it is and then run a random number off of that, or run the mathematics off of that number that it gets back from the clock, because it'll always be different every time. Every time it hits the clock, it's going to hit a different time. Even if that time is only a millisecond later, it's still, the number string will be a different number string because it will be a millisecond later. So with No Man's Sky, they intentionally do not hit the clock or anything that would actually incur randomization in the creation of the universe. They wait until the next step out and then randomly generate it using their Fourier transformations and fractals. And actually it's what they're doing is they're using fractal transformation to generate worlds and universes and entire galaxies out there of life forms and fauna and flora and all kinds of stuff. It makes for some very interesting things because the developers did not develop these planets. So you're on these planets and you're finding stuff, like, for example, on the planet that I was on, there's a cave underneath my base, and I didn't know that. I built my base on the top of a mountain, and originally that was just the best place to land. I put my ship on the side of a mountain. Kevin, my buddy Kevin, who's usually the engineer for Geek Tank, he built platforms for landing that just stuck out the side of the mountain. And then we landed our spaceships on the platforms, and then from there we built our base on the top of the mountain. Well, as time has gone on, I have used the terrain manipulation tool to flatten it down to a mesa so that now it's all flat from the platforms all the way across. When I did, I opened up a cave. And as far as I can tell, that cave has no exit until now. Now it's got an exit. But it didn't have an exit before. So we've gone and wandered around the cave a little. My son wants to go down in there a lot, and so he keeps wandering down into the cave. And he's found a few things down in there that are interesting, but he hasn't found an exit yet. So this is not something that the programmers didn't build this cave into this mountain on this planet. They just set the programming up to randomly generate it. The best part about it is every time I start the game, it runs the same random fractal and ends up building the cave and then building the mountain, and then it remembers that I've leveled the top of the mountain. So that part's been saved, but the rest of it hasn't. So it remembers everything from my base computer, where I put my computer down, and then remembers what I've done around it. But it doesn't remember much else other than that. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating to me. This is a very fascinating thing. In the 90s, I was part of a team of people who was trying to build a game that was very similar to this, where it randomly generated stars and planets and system stuff like that. And that was really cool. I love No Man's Sky a whole lot because it did sort of bring our idea to life, but it isn't following some rules that I would have done. I would have made the game much more complex once you were out into space. Right now, the planets in the system just hang there. You know, they're all stuck in the same random location wherever the fractal placed a planet, you know. And so they just hold. And I can tell that that's one of the reasons why they don't fix this problem, is because it would indeed change, I'm sure, the fractal mathematics. You know, the mathematics goes to the star, then generates a planet, then generates the life on the planet, then generates the flora, the fauna, and then the design of what the planet looks like. So, changing it so that the planets actually orbit and have some logic to them, I can see could be a problem. I also feel like it does all of the thought processes in the same manner, and so that's kind of a bummer, because it's like they're all habitable planets, every one of them. Even the ones that are like rocks in space have a small amount of atmosphere and have little creatures crawling on them. And it's like, well, I'd think that there'd be a lot of rocks in space. You'd have just rocks. It's a big asteroid. Just a really, really, really big asteroid. Like Mercury. Mercury's just a big asteroid. It's an overgrown asteroid. But I mean, you think rocky core planets, they're not that common. I mean, they're common, but they're not that common. They're certainly not 99% of the planets you'll find. Most of the time you're going to find gas giants, you know. And learning a few things for the purpose of Bellatrix Rising. I've been doing a lot of research on Population 1, Population 2, and Population 3 stars. And I find it fascinating. And for those of you who are not familiar, the universe started with Population 3 stars. Those are stars that, what they call metal poor, or metal non-existent stars. And in astronomical terms, by the way, metal is anything that's not hydrogen or helium. So you could even call like oxygen a metal, as astronomy goes and astrophysics goes. And that's just a shorthand. It's not an error. What they call Population 3 metal non-existent stars. They only have hydrogen and helium. Those stars burned themselves down, exploded, became a nebula, and the nebula then was a whole bunch of small imperfections. Those imperfections then formed... Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Let me see that. Let's take a look at what we got going on here. Let's see what our Spock looks like. Ooh! That looks good. Brent is working on printing, and he printed a Spock bust. And the bust looks really nice. I like this. I think it's interesting that some of the flash that's still on there looks like little deltas. I mean, but I gotta admit, man, I'd put a Spock bust on my desk. He'd just stare at me and make me feel guilty for not doing my work. Oh, I can share him? Sweet. Then I shall. I shall. Here we go. This is what he's working on at this point in time. It's kind of hard to see some of the flash that I'm talking about, but I like the work and I like what he's doing. I'm trying to keep the Ring camera from lighting up the picture. I can't get the camera to focus in on it. That's all right. That's all right. All artwork is worth sharing. Are you going to paint him? That's the question. Are you going to paint him? Because that'd be cool. I'd love to see him painted. You have to bring him to the next convention that we finally can go to when we can all finally get to the conventions again, so we can all like ogle it and go, oh, this is amazing work. You know, that kind of stuff. So what I was kind of getting into what I was learning with Bellatrix Rising, and this is important because part of the, I don't want to say magic system, but there's a magic system of sort, which I don't want it to be just a we wave a magic wand, abracadabra, and things happen magic system. I wanted there to be a logic, and the logic is based solely off of the existence of population 3 stars. And for that, that's just a tease so that we can kind of... Yeah, you'll see us at the RPG game in October, but I'd like to see it in person, of course, naturally, right? Everybody should see that stuff in person. Okay, so population 3 stars, population 2 stars. The population 2 stars ultimately all died out and then left a lot more imperfections in their nebula. Those imperfections formed population 1 stars. That's our kind of star. I don't know why we went backwards, because I would call our current stars pop 3 stars, because at some point in time they're going to die, and when they do, they spew out a whole bunch of nebula junk, and then there's going to be population -1 stars. That'd be typical of astronomy. If you've ever dealt with anything with absolute magnitude, you'll understand that they will just continue to go with negative numbers, and that's just fine by them. And you just have to remember all of the negative numbers. Anyway, we're in the 3rd generation of stars here. These are the only stars that can create planets, really, because they're the only ones that have enough imperfections inside there that when they make the protoplanetary disks, they generate rocks. And planets are effectively pearls. I mean, that's really what planets are. They're pearls in the creation, the protoplanetary creation of a star. And so you have to have sand in order for there to be pearls. So that's really, in fact, the best way to think about planets. So though Pop 2 stars might have had planets, they're very, very weird, and they'll be very light. They won't be metal heavy. So anyway, that's something I have learned while studying Bellatrix Rising stuff, and I was very excited about that. Just saying. Okay, it's 20 minutes till I've got to end the show, so we're going to go on ahead and go back to drawing our giraffe, Girafino. So we want his head to tilt like this. So I'll zoom in here a little bit. We're just going to bring this out and around here and give this a nice S curve like that, because bodies work that way. And back to the butt here, right, to the hip joint, through that middle hip joint there, and around. Right? Oh, you got Kirk going too. Look at that. That looks so cool. So, are you just trimming off the struts the support struts and then just like sanding them down. Is that what we're headed for here? And I'm guessing that's sort of what we're going for. We've got he's got Kirk going as well, but you can't see because I don't actually have it on the large screen. That's okay. So we're going to do this, and then do this, and that. So we're just going to look at the anatomy here, right? And looking at our anatomy, we're going up for the little horn pieces in the back that all giraffes have. Right? We're going to come down for the nose, which is through there. We're going to have a second horn right here. There we go. Just like this. So he's managed to capture this orange from up here, which works perfect. Right? I'm going to get his little lip over it too. Yeah, I wondered how much trouble it would be. Of course, it probably just looks like he was drooling a lot. You know, when you get the supports out, you're like, I know that, I've seen a couple of them where they rotate the figure. So, like, he's laying flat. Here's his head and here's his shoulders. So he's laying flat like this. And then that way that minimizes the number of supports across the face, which is a harder place to have to do stuff. I mean, you still have to have supports across the back of the neck, but those can be trimmed down pretty easily. So, I don't know if that's something you can do, or maybe not. There we go. Right? We've got to follow the logic of the, and I think we're missing the logic with the wall here. So we're looking at the logic of this body. This wall should follow the same logic, right? Here and here to here, right? That's what should be happening. And it really isn't. I'm not sure why. Other than I didn't put any kind of constraint on this. I'm just drawing it by hand. But that looks a little bit more lined up. And we can feel that. We feel that this is not the right way that this is supposed to be. This portion here and this portion here defines where the bottom of this picture is. Right, so if we look in sort of this manner here, with grid coming out across here, 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 we just keep going back like this, we can see that what we have is a flat surface that has boxes that kind of look like this, right? This is, by the way, the reason why I use 3D to do stuff. Because I can do it this way, but we're going to spend the entire show today just getting the anatomy squared away. And if it takes an hour for me to just get to the point where we're close to the anatomy, it might be even better for me to just bring up Dad's studio and then bring up a giraffe and then modify the giraffe. Because the giraffe and the wall here are not lined up straight. So we're going to have to erase all of the wall. We're pretty much going to have to erase the entire picture and come back from the ground up. So that's not to say that, we all should be doing that, but I can totally justify a lot of the time spent posing and setting up in Dad's 3D to do that. So there's that. That's a thought process here. So it's been an interesting show today. We've talked about No Man's Sky. We've talked about Brent doing these really cool busts from Star Trek, which, I can't argue with that at all. I think everybody should work on Star Trek. I'm just saying. Or at least work from the point of view of Star Trek. So, we've had George attacking a bug and hopefully getting him and not just playing with him. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. And so that's the nature of the show for the day. We've got about 10 minutes left in the show. So if we've got any last statements we want to make before we head on out, we can do that. I just saw my child peek around the corner, which means that he's wondering whether we're done with the show and we're not. So that's the thing. We'll get there. We'll get there. So tomorrow I'm going to go on ahead and put in a lot of various things for this. I'm going to continue this piece here. We're going to keep working on that. And then I'm going to have to get back to Ron Fortier's pieces too. We've got a couple of those on there, but I want to pre-pose at least a little bit on those because I'm really having a hard time visualizing what's going on. So we're going to be doing that. I'm going to try to do the pre-posing tonight on both of these pieces so that they're already done. It's only about an hour's worth of work, so that won't take too much time. So we're going to go on ahead and close all of that out. We're going to close everything else out. There we go. Yep, everything's closed out. Okay. So I'm hoping, Brent, that you're having good luck with trimming and sanding and all of the things you have to do to the various objects, because I'm fascinated by what you're doing, and I'm hoping that turns out really cool. So keep me apprised on that one. I'm always fascinated by how this goes, and painting it would be really nifty. See, that's one of those things where I would be fascinated to try to take one of those busts and actually, do the color flesh tones and the blue eyeshadow that he wore, and because I think that was hysterical and very funny. But he looked great. He looked fabulous. So nothing wrong with that. Even Kirk had a greenish eyeshadow from time to time. It was very funny. But that's stage makeup. I mean, that's what they were doing. It was just doing stage makeup. So it worked. And then there we go. So, okay guys, we're going to go on ahead and close up shop. I'll see you tomorrow with pen and paper, and we will start again, warming up. Until then, keep your eyes on the stars. Thanks. See you later.